What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another video on my YouTube channel, and as usual, a lot going on in the sports world, but I want to start with the NBA because it's a big time in the NBA. The trade deadline is coming up, and the All-Star game is going to be here before we know it. And speaking of the All-Star game, the starters were announced yesterday on TNT. I'm recording this video on Friday. The starters were announced yesterday on Thursday. So starting with the East, Damian Lillard, Tyrese Halliburton, that's the backcourt. And then in the front court, we have Jason Tatum, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and Joel Embiid. And then in the West, the backcourt is Luka Doncic and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. And then in the front court, we have Kevin Durant, LeBron James, and Nikola Jokic. I think for the most part, all the starters are good. I think the fans, the coaches, the media, the player votes, they nailed the West. I wouldn't change anything with the West starters, even though if you look at the starters, a big name is missing. Stephen Curry, for the first time since 2013, is not a starter in the All-Star game. And Steph is having an amazing season, but I do think that Shai and Luka are both playing better than him right now. So I would give those two guys the starting backcourt nod over Curry, but that doesn't take anything away from Steph Curry. But then in the East, I think for the most part, they got it right too. The front court, no questions about that. Jason Tatum, Giannis, Joel Embiid, easy. Backcourt, Tyrese Halliburton, he's leading the league in assists this year, 13 assists per game, 24 points per game. Probably, arguably the best true point guard in the NBA right now. You could argue Luka. But the main controversy that exists with these starters is in the East backcourt, and that's Damian Lillard getting that all-star starting nod over guys like Jalen Brunson, Tyrese Maxey, Trae Young, Donovan Mitchell. A lot of good guard play in the East this year, and Dame gets the starting nod. And he's having an incredible season. He's putting up 25 points, 7 assists, not shooting the ball that well this year, shooting around 43%. But the majority of people think that Jalen Brunson should have gotten that starting nod over Dame. And look, the Knicks are a top 5 team in the East right now. Jalen Brunson is putting up 27 points a game, around 6 assists per game, and shooting the ball much more efficiently than Dame, around 48% from the field. So me personally, I would have given Jalen Brunson that starting spot over Dame. Both guys are incredible players. I'm sure Jalen Brunson will be in the reserves. The thing about the East, in particular with guard play, it's going to be interesting to see who doesn't make the All-Star team because, like I said, I brought up Tyrese Maxey, Trae Young, Donovan Mitchell, a bunch of guys having great seasons. So it'll be interesting to see who fills out the reserves in the East and even the West, not even in the backcourt, because you have guys like De'Aaron Fox, Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, Anthony Davis, Domantas Sabonis, Anthony Edwards, Rudy Gobert, a bunch of guys who are having incredible seasons. So I'm very excited to see who the reserves are going to be. They're going to announce the reserves later, just the starting lineups. And that's what I wanted to start this video with. I would have given Jalen Brunson a starting spot over Dame. Let me know what you guys think about that in the comments below. But the big thing that I want to get into in this video was the biggest news, in my opinion, of the week regarding the NBA, which was the Bucks firing head coach Adrian Griffin mid-season. At the time of his firing, the Bucks were 30-13, 6-4 in their last 10 games. So the casual fan may think, hey, everything's going good in Milwaukee. Why would they fire a first-year rookie head coach in the middle of the season when they're second in the East? They have the second best record in the league. Well, there's a lot of things that went into this firing. So if you pay attention to the Bucks at all, if you have over the last 5 or 6 years, they have been a defensive-minded team. They've been one of the 5 best defensive teams in the league over the past 5 years. During the time when Mike Budenholzer got there, they established that they were going to be a defensive team. They were going to pack the paint, give up some threes, but they were mostly going to be very good on defense. And that it brought them a championship. That style of defense, they won in 2021. They lost in 2022 when they were dealing with some injury issues, and then they just got flat out embarrassed by the Miami Heat in the first round last year, even though Giannis did miss basically 3 games of the series. You shouldn't lose in 5 to a Heat team that is an 8th seed. So they fire Bud, they hire Adrian Griffin, and Adrian Griffin is supposed to bring that defensive mentality to the team, a defensive-focused head coach. He was one of Nick Nurse's assistants in Toronto. He was supposed to stress a style of more press man defense, really get into the ball handler and force turnovers. But the problem is the Bucks have been absolutely awful on defense this year. They are in the 20s in terms of defensive rating. They are a bottom 5 team, I believe, in terms of opponents' points allowed They're giving up around 125 points a game. But on offense, they're the highest scoring team in the league. It may still be the Pacers, I'm not sure. They're definitely top 2, and their offensive rating is up there with the top teams in the league. So they're a historically good offense with Giannis and Dame. So offensively, that duo for the most part is working. I still think it's a little shaky, and like I said before, Dame isn't shooting the ball as well this year. I think a big part of that is the way that the Bucks are using him. I don't think they're running enough offense through Damian Lillard. But anyways, they mainly fired Adrian Griffin because of the team's defense. It wasn't good. Guys didn't really know what they were doing. The scheme wasn't that good. Brook Lopez, for the majority of his career in Milwaukee, has made his name on the defensive end through rim protection. They play a lot of drop coverage, which is why you see guards get a lot of easy floaters on the Bucks. But the thing is, Brook Lopez knows how to pack the paint and protect the paint. He was a Defensive Player of the Year finalist last year, and this year he's leading the league in blocks. So that's what he's been known for on defense. You have Giannis as a help side defender who's able to do most of the same things, and they had Jrue Holiday. Arguably, most people believe he's the best perimeter guard defender in the league. So that is the reason why the Bucks were one of the best defensive teams in the league going into this season. But then what does Milwaukee decide to do in the offseason? They trade Jrue Holiday to the Blazers for Damian Lillard, and then Jrue Holiday obviously goes to the Celtics in a trade with Boston. But they wanted to basically go all in on offense after the last postseason loss to the Heat. So they bring in Dame, and yes, you'd expect their defensive prowess to go down a little bit, but not as much as it has, because you still have guys like Giannis and Brook who are great defenders. You shouldn't expect them to be somewhere in the 20s defensively. If they had fallen to like maybe 11th or 12th, like a slight drop off defensively, you would understand that, because you're trading great defense for Jrue Holiday into great offense for Damian Lillard. But the thing is, the Bucks aren't stopping anybody defensively, even though their record is super good. And then you have other problems with the Bucks and why Adrian Griffin got fired. Players just flat out did not respect him. They were tuning him out, essentially. You had an incident in the offseason when Terry Stotts, who former coach of the Blazers, a very good offensive coach, came on as Adrian Griffin's assistant, and most people thought, first-year head coach, getting a guy like Terry Stotts to help him create offensive sets, because again, Adrian Griffin is a defensive-minded head coach. So a guy like Terry Stotts would have been perfect for Milwaukee to have this season to help him with offensive sets, try and get that offense going a little bit more. Maybe he could help him figure out how to use Damian Lillard, because for the majority of Dame's career in Portland, Terry Stotts was his coach. So those two guys know each other, they have chemistry, but Terry Stotts doesn't even make it to the start of the season because he resigns. He leaves the Bucks assistant role because he basically thinks Adrian Griffin is getting in over his head. He wouldn't listen to any of the advice he was giving him. They were getting into arguments during practice. So that was the first red flag for the Bucks. And then you had multiple incidents during the season where you could see publicly players challenging Adrian Griffin. There were a few instances this year when he would try to sub Giannis out of games, and Giannis and Griffin would get into heated arguments on the sideline. Giannis didn't want to come out. And then maybe the most famous one was after the in-season tournament loss to the Pacers, when the report got out that Bobby Portis was among players who were very vocal in the locker room saying that our schemes aren't good. We don't know what we're doing. We need to execute better. We need to run an offense that's more smooth. So when stuff gets out like that about your head coach basically doesn't have command of the locker room, that's troublesome. And that's a big reason why he got fired. And I will give Griffin this. He stepped into a difficult role as head coach. Giannis did pick him to be his guy, but Griffin stepped into a difficult role as head coach. For a first-year head coach who's gone through 14 different interviews before even getting his first job, he's been trying to get a crack at this for so long. In his first job, he gets to coach Giannis and Damian Lillard, two veteran superstars who are really, I don't think they're big ego guys, but regardless, they're still superstars, and it can be hard for a first-year head coach to get two superstars like that to listen to everything he says, always be motivated by everything he says. And in general, the Bucks are just an old team. There are a lot of veteran guys, so it can be hard for them to take a first-year head coach that seriously. And so another big thing is, if I was the Bucks, I would have hired Nick Nurse in the offseason. Nick Nurse is able to take a lot of flaws and not make them flaws, essentially, because you saw at what happened after Kawhi Leonard left. He had the Raptors as a second seed in the East with a team led by Pascal Siakam, Kyle Lowry, Fred VanVleet. So Nick Nurse can coach, and you look at what he's doing with the Sixers this year. Many people believe this may be the Sixers' best chance ever to get to the finals because of how good they look. Joel Embiid averaging 36 points per game as a center. He's probably going to win MVP again. He's having an absurdly good season. But Giannis didn't want Nick Nurse. So obviously the front office in Milwaukee is not going to hire a guy that Giannis doesn't want to be his head coach. And then another reason why they made the trade for Damian Lillard was to get Giannis to sign that 3-year, $186 million extension that he signed in the offseason. They're showing him that they're trying to go all in to win a chip. And so it clearly wasn't working out, and the Bucks decided to pull the plug. But what is so bizarre and odd about the situation is who they decided to hire to replace Adrian Griffin. They go get Doc Rivers, who everybody knows Doc Rivers' playoff history. Aside from the 2008 championship with the Celtics, it's spotty to put it nicely. He's blown a lot of 3-1 leads, a lot of 3-2 leads, and his record in Game 7s is not good. I believe he's lost his last 5 Game 7s. So all the marbles on the line, he hasn't shown that he can make adjustments when it absolutely matters most. And that was the same problem they were having with Mike Budenholzer, a guy who, a very good X's and O's coach, taught them how to win in the regular season. But when it came down to it in the postseason, he wasn't necessarily getting it done in terms of making in-game adjustments. And so Doc Rivers is going to be the coach of the Bucks. A few things on this. One, if this doesn't work out for Doc Rivers, I don't really see how he gets another head coaching job in the leagues. Other people have said that already. I know Stephen A. went on TV and said that, so I'm not going to act like this is some unique take. Doc Rivers has coached a lot of superstars in this league, and he's only gotten one title out of all of that. You have guys like Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, Ray Allen, Chris Paul, Blake Griffin, DeAndre Jordan, Joel Embiid, James Harden, now Giannis and Dame. So this is his last shot. If Milwaukee doesn't get to the finals this year, it's going to be, not in terms of security, but they signed him through the 26-27 season. But I think after this tenure, if he can't bring a title to Milwaukee, I don't really see how another championship aspiring team is going to give him a shot as a head coach. And that may be unfair to Doc Rivers because he's been doing not play-by-play, but he's been doing broadcasting for ESPN all season. And so they're asking him to come in halfway through the season and basically start all over again, bring in new schemes, new ideas, and try to get the Bucks to a championship. Is it a little unfair? Sure, but you have Giannis and Dame, so they got to go get it done. And then another thing is, I think that Giannis, if this doesn't work out with Doc Rivers and Milwaukee decides to pull the plug on him, Giannis is going to get that coach killer tag because he had Mike Budenholzer fired in the offseason. He didn't want Bud there anymore. They brought in Adrian Griffin because he didn't want Nick Nurse for whatever reason. They fire Adrian Griffin mid-season, something unprecedented, a first-year head coach getting fired when your team has the second best record in the league. And now he has Doc Rivers. So if it doesn't work out with Doc Rivers, are the Bucks just going to fire him too? That's going to look bad on Giannis, and that may be unfair. He's already said that, hey, I don't make decisions when it comes to stuff like that, but everybody knows that the NBA is a players' league, and superstars have a lot of influence. And so another thing that I wanted to add is people may not remember, but this isn't the first time the Bucks have done something like this, because in the middle of the 2017-2018 season, they fired Jason Kidd, who brought the Bucks to sort of that rising star team. They were a young team. They make the playoffs with Giannis. Giannis made his first All-Star team in 2016-2017. And then they made the trade for Eric Bledsoe in the offseason or during the beginning of that season. So people thought the Bucks are going to be that young up-and-coming team in the East that's going to be like a young Sixers team who was third in the East that year in 2017-2018. But I believe the Bucks started the season as a fringe playoff team. They were an 8th seed when Jason Kidd got fired because the front office was saying, hey, we have Giannis, we have Chris Middleton, we have Eric Bledsoe. We basically have a big three in the East and other young players like Thon Maker, and we're not doing good enough. So they fired Jason Kidd mid-season. Joe Prunty coached them, interim head coach like he is now, through the rest of the season, and then they lose in the first round. So I bring that up to say that when the Bucks aren't meeting expectations, their front office is not afraid to pull the plug and say, we need to go in a different direction. And so basically that's what they're doing this year, because even though they're second in the East, 31-13 right now, they're saying the product that we're getting on the court is not good enough. So we're going to fire Adrian Griffin now to try and essentially salvage their season. That's crazy to say based on how good their record is. And we're going to see how it works out, because now there's even more pressure on the Bucks to get out of the East and win the championship, because a lot of people think they may have panicked by firing Griffin, and then they bring in Doc Rivers. So much is on the line for a lot of these guys. Giannis, Damian Lillard. Dame's never won anything, so he needs to win with the Bucks. And then Doc Rivers, I just went over it. His playoff history is not good. He hasn't won a title in forever, so big expectations in Milwaukee. Let me know what you guys think about the Bucks firing Adrian Griffin midseason. Did you like it? Did you not like it? And then let me know what you guys think about the hiring of Doc Rivers. And then just to end this video very quickly, I will give my predictions for the AFC and NFC championship games this weekend. I have the Niners beating the Lions in a close game, and then I have the Chiefs beating the Ravens, and then I'll just give my Super Bowl prediction off the top. I think the Chiefs go to the Super Bowl and win. I don't think they're going to go to the Super Bowl and lose. I just think they're going to be too confident making it through everything they've been through this season. So if they get to the Super Bowl, I don't think they're going to lose. I have Niners, Chiefs winning the Super Bowl. Thanks so much for watching this video. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and share, and find the rest of my content linked in the description.